The whole street went silent the moment the shadow fell across the houses. People inside their homes felt it before they saw it. A heavy pressure in the air. A deep vibration through the ground. Even the wind seemed to stop moving. At the end of the street stood a figure no one ever wanted to see on Earth. She was tall, far taller than any human. Her armor was dark red, scarred by plasma burns and claw marks. Strange alien symbols glowed faintly across her chest plate. A massive blade rested on her back, taller than a human adult. Her name was Karzal the Red Blade. Across the galaxy, her name was spoken in fear. She had ended wars alone. She had walked through fire and enemy lines without slowing. Entire planets surrendered when her ship entered orbit, and now she stood in front of a small, ordinary human house. The house belonged to Evan Cole. Evan was not special. He was not a soldier or a hero. He fixed broken machines for a living. Old heaters, damaged drones, worn-out tools. He liked quiet mornings and warm tea. His home smelled of oil, metal, and old books. That morning, Evan was sitting at his table when the knock came. 3 slow knocks, not loud. Not violent. Just. Careful. Evan froze. His heart began to pound so hard it hurt. He did not need to look outside. Every screen in the city had been screaming warnings for the last 10 minutes. Alert. Class Omega entity detected. Shelter immediately. Evan stood slowly. His legs felt weak. His hands shook as he reached for the door. He told himself this was a mistake. That she was here for someone else. But deep down, he knew. The knock came again. Evan opened the door. She filled the doorway completely, up close. Karzal was even more terrifying. Her eyes glowed a deep blue, like distant stars. Her skin was marked with old battle scars. Power rolled off her in waves. The kind of power that made humans feel small and fragile. Evan could not speak. Karzal lowered her head slightly, a movement so gentle it did not match her reputation. "Human Evan Cole," she said. Her voice was deep, rough, and heavy with something Evan did not expect, nervousness. "I ask permission to speak with you." Evan's breath caught in his throat. This was wrong. She was not shouting. She was not threatening. She was asking. Yes, Evan whispered, not sure why he agreed. "You can speak." Karzal looked relieved. "I will not harm you," she said quickly. "I swear this on my blade, my blood, and the ashes of my enemies." That oath made Evan's stomach twist, but he nodded. "Why are you here?" he asked. Karzal was silent for a long moment. Around them, the city held its breath. Military drones hovered far away, weapons charged but unmoving. Every government on Earth was watching this small doorstep. Finally, the feared warrior spoke again. "I was told," she said slowly, "that humans understand. Small, gentle things." Evan blinked. "That is not something people usually say about us," he replied. Karzal's glowing eyes dimmed slightly. "I have faced death without fear," she said. "I have crushed armies. But today, I am afraid." That single sentence shook Evan more than any threat ever could. The most feared warrior in the galaxy was afraid. She clenched her massive hands, armor creaking. "I need help," she said. "With something I do not understand." Evan swallowed. "What kind of help?" Karzal took a slow breath. Her next words would change both of their lives. "I wish," she said quietly, "to make a cake." And for the first time since the knock, Evan felt something strange rise in his chest. Not fear, not danger, but the feeling that something impossible was about to begin. Evan blinked. He stared at her for a long moment, hoping he had misheard. Cake?" he asked, his voice trembling between disbelief and nervous laughter. Karzal's glowing eyes did not waver. She nodded once, slowly, seriously. "Yes," she said. "A cake. I do not understand it, but it is important. Please." Evan felt his knees weaken. His hands fumbled for the table. He wanted to laugh. He wanted to scream. He wanted to close the door and pretend this had never happened. But something in her tone made him stop. Something softer than her usual rage, softer than the fear she carried like a weapon. Something human. Why? Why would someone like you want a cake? Evan asked, more curious than afraid now. Karzal lowered her massive head. Her voice trembled tiny, almost invisible, but it was there. My clutch sister, she said. She is dying. Among my people, we do not give gifts. We do not show tenderness. We fight. We win or die. But I have seen your human recordings. Celebrations, sweets, laughter. And I know. She deserves this. Even if she cannot survive much longer, she must feel love. I do not know how to give it. I only know how to fight. Evan's chest tightened. He had fixed broken machines, worked with oil and wires, but never had he felt the weight of a universe on someone's shoulders. And here it was, in front of him, carried by a warrior who could crush armies with her bare hands. Okay, he said quietly. We can. Try. But I have to warn you, it won't be easy. Cakes require patience, precision, gentle touch. Not force. Karzal's eyes glowed faintly, as if this was a foreign language. She tilted her head. I can learn, she said. Her voice was firm, but there was a crack in it, like a hidden river breaking through Icedot, so Evan led her into his kitchen. She moved carefully, ducking under the ceiling, careful not to bump her armor. Her massive hands trembled as they touched the counters. Every motion was cautious, as if she feared shattering something she could not rebuild. He handed her eggs, sugar, flour, and a mixing bowl. She lifted the eggs with the care of someone handling a live grenade. She cracked them too hard. Yolk and shell splattered across the counter. Her eyes widened. She froze, expecting to explode or be scolded. Evan laughed a soft, warm laugh that eased the tension in the room. It's okay. It's supposed to be messy at first. She stiffened, unaccustomed to kindness. I have destroyed planets, she said, voice low, almost a growl. Yet this terrifies me. Yes, Evan replied gently. Because it matters. The hours passed slowly. Karzal learned to measure, to mix, to fold. She burned the first batch of batter, nearly cracked the second, but she persisted. Every mistake made her flinch, but every success made her pause, studying it like a weapon she had never handled before. Evan watched her closely. He noticed the way her shoulders relaxed when she stirred slowly, the faint smile she gave when the butter melted perfectly, the awe in her glowing eyes as the oven hummed to life. This is strange, she said after a while, her voice almost whispering. I have walked through fire. I have faced death. I have broken worlds. And yet, I feel afraid. Not of failure. Not of pain, but of ruining this gift. Evan nodded. Because it is not just a cake. It is love you are giving. That's why it matters more than any war. Finally, after what felt like hours, the cake came out of the oven. It was uneven. Slightly burned at the edges, imperfect. Karzal stared at it. She lifted it carefully, like it could shatter in her hands. And in that moment, Evan saw it. The fear, the tenderness. The exhaustion of a warrior who had carried the universe on her shoulders, and now, for the first time, carried something fragile. Something beautiful. She turned to him, eyes shimmering with something Evan had never expected to see in the red blade. Gratitude. Thank you, she whispered. So softly he almost didn't hear. Evan smiled, feeling something swell in his chest. Fear had transformed into trust. Danger had turned into something almost human, and at that moment, neither of them noticed the first hum of approaching engines outside. The galaxy, it seemed, had its eyes on them, Karzal held the cake in her massive hands as if it were made of glass. She tilted it slightly, studying the uneven top, the golden brown edges, the small crack running down the side. To a human, it might have seemed imperfect. But to her, it was a treasure. I do not understand, she said quietly. Her voice was soft, trembling even. I have faced death countless times. I have walked through fire, through collapsing bridges, through entire armies. And yet this scares me more than any battle. Evan smiled. It's because it matters. Battles are about survival, about strength. Cakes are about care, about love, and love. It is something no warrior can force. Karzal's glowing eyes dimmed as she absorbed his words. She had known fear, anger, pain, and power. But she had never known patience. And here, in this small human kitchen, she felt it for the first time. She took a deep breath and set the cake on the counter. Her large, clawed fingers brushed against the frosting, leaving small fingerprints. She did not erase them. She let them be, learning that not everything needed perfection. Show me more, she said. Teach me how to make it. Better, Evan chuckled softly. It's not about better. It's about giving it. So they began again. Flour flew across the counters. Eggs cracked in the wrong places. Butter melted too fast. Karzal's massive hands nearly broke the mixing bowls more than once. She would flinch every time, expecting disaster, expecting him to yell, expecting the fragile human kitchen to shatter like it was a battlefield. But Evan never scolded her. He guided her, spoke softly, laughed gently. He showed her how to fold, how to stir, how to wait for the oven to reach the right temperature. Each small step built something larger than a cake. It built trust. It built understanding. When the second cake emerged from the oven, slightly taller, slightly rounder, she handled it with reverence. She touched the frosting as if she were caressing a friend. She stepped back and observed it from every angle, learning, absorbing, experiencing something she had never felt in all her years as a warrior. This is strange, Karzal said finally. Her voice trembled, but it was no longer fear. It was awe. I have destroyed armies. I have crushed ships. I have faced impossible odds. And yet, I have never felt this care. Not for anything. Not for anyone. And now, I understand why humans, why you value this. Evan nodded quietly. It's because it shows you care, even when it seems small or silly. That's what humans do. And now you're doing it too. For the first time, Karzal felt vulnerable. Not in battle, not in war, not on the field. Vulnerable in a way that terrified her. Because she had spent centuries controlling everything, dominating everything, fearing nothing. Now she feared something delicate, something fragile, feelings. Do you think she will like it? She asked. Her eyes, which usually struck terror into the hearts of billions, now reflected something tender, hopeful, and afraid all at once. Evan smiled. She'll love it, even if it's not perfect. Because you made it. Karzal paused. The words sank in. She had never created something for love before. She had never given without expecting to take. She had never done anything simply to make someone else happy. And now she was learning the smallest, yet most powerful lesson of all. Love is stronger than fear. Stronger than war, stronger than any weapon outside. The sun began to dip behind the skyline, casting long shadows over the city. The hum of distant drones filled the air. The galaxy was still watching. But inside this little kitchen, time slowed. The red blade, feared by billions, was learning to laugh quietly at her mistakes. To watch flour drift in the air like snow. To feel her heart beat faster over something as ridiculous and as meaningful as a cake. She looked at Evan, a question in her glowing eyes. Do all humans fight so little to create so much? Evan shook his head. No, most humans fight all the time. But some, like us, fight with care. That's what matters. Karzo lowered her gaze to the cake again. Her massive shoulders sagged in exhaustion, but this exhaustion was different. It was not from battle or bloodshed. It was the weight of hope, of tenderness, of love she had never dared to carry. And for the first time, she realized something profound. Her greatest battle was not against armies, planets, or tyrants. Her greatest battle was learning to care. A soft alarm suddenly buzzed from Evan's security panel. Outside, the faint hum of approaching engines grew louder. The galaxy, it seemed, was arriving at her doorstep. Karzal stiffened, instinct taking over. Her claws brushed the counter. Her glowing eyes flickered. The weight of her blade pressed against her back like it always did, but she did not attack. Not yet, because this tiny, ridiculous, human thing was more important than any fight she had ever known, and Evan understood in that quiet, suspended moment that he was about to witness something the galaxy had never seen. A monster learning patience. And perhaps learning humanity. The hum of engines outside grew louder. Evan's heart thumped painfully in his chest. He glanced at Karzal, expecting the usual tension, the readiness to strike, the aura of a warrior who had never lost a fight, but she wasn't ready to strike. She was holding the cake carefully, staring at it as if it were the most precious weapon in the universe. Her glowing eyes flickered with something Evan had never seen before. Fear. Yes, but also hope. Evan, she said softly, almost a whisper, I do not understand why the galaxy fears me. They fear my blade, my strength. But I am afraid of this. And yet, I must finish it. She deserves it. Evan swallowed hard. I know, he said. And we'll do it together. Just stay calm, okay? The first ship appeared over the horizon, metallic and cold. Military lights scanned the sky, locking onto Karzal. Humans had tracked her presence. And now they wanted answers, or perhaps they wanted to capture the most feared warrior. Alive, Karzal's massive hands trembled. The cake wobbled in her grip. For the first time, she understood what vulnerability meant. Not the vulnerability of a soldier in battle. Not the vulnerability of a wounded body. This was the vulnerability of caring, of risking your heart. I do not wish to fight them, she admitted, her voice low. I only wish to finish this task. I only wish to give her something she cannot have otherwise. Evan nodded, sensing her inner struggle. He stepped forward, brushing flour from his hands, his gaze steady. Then let them see, he said. Let them see that not all strength is in weapons. Some strength is in care. Some strength is in love. Karzal's eyes flickered again, and for a moment, she looked like a child learning the world, not the galaxy's deadliest warrior. She placed the cake on the counter carefully and began adding the final touches. Her claws were enormous, but she moved gently, like handling a fragile life. The frosting smeared slightly, but she did not panic. Outside, the engines grew louder. Drones hovered, scanning, preparing to intervene. Messages came through the network. Red Blade confirmed. Civilian interference. Stand down protocols pending. But inside the small kitchen, none of that mattered. There was only the cake. There was only Karzal learning patience. There was only Evan guiding her, speaking quietly, reminding her to breathe, to stir slowly, to care. You are stronger than any army, Evan said. Because you are willing to give something fragile a chance. Karzal paused, touching the cake lightly. Stronger than an army? She repeated. The idea seemed foreign, almost impossible. She had always measured strength in victories, in battles won, in fear instilled. Now she measured it in flour, eggs, and sugar. The first alarmed human ship hovered directly above the house. A voice came through loudspeakers, mechanical and authoritative. Karzal the Red Blade. Step away from the human. Leave immediately or be detained. Karzal's massive frame stiffened. Instinct screamed at her to strike. Her glowing eyes flared. She could destroy these ships in minutes, send their pilots screaming into the void. That was her life fight first, ask questions never. But she did not. She looked at Evan. At the small hands covered in flour, at the warm smile on his face. At the tiny kitchen where nothing was perfect, but everything mattered. And she made a choice. She lowered her weapon. Not fully, but enough. Enough to show that she could fight, but she would not. Not now. Not for this. I will not fight, she said, her voice firm but calm. Not here. Not for this. Evan's heart pounded. He stepped closer, placing a steadying hand on her arm. Then finish it. Give her the gift. That is all that matters. Karzal nodded slowly. She bent over the cake, brushing it gently, arranging it carefully. Each movement was deliberate. Each breath measured. The most feared warrior in the galaxy had become fragile, patient, and tender, and the city watched silently. Drones recorded the moment. Military leaders hesitated. Everyone saw what no one had expected: a monster, a warrior, a conqueror learning care from a human. For the first time, Evan realized that what he had always believed about humans might be true. We were small, fragile, and simple, but in our simplicity, we were capable of teaching the galaxy things even the strongest warriors could not learn. Karzal looked up, her glowing eyes meeting his. Will she forgive me if it is imperfect? Evan smiled warmly. She will forgive you because you tried. That is what matters. The engines continued to hum outside. The city held its breath, and inside the small kitchen, the impossible was happening. The red blade was learning patience, love, and the quiet power of care. And in that fragile, flour-dusted moment, Evan knew that this small, ridiculous task, the making of a cake, was about to change everything. The sky outside had turned a deep shade of orange, and the hum of approaching ships filled the city. Military lights flashed across the rooftops. Drones hovered, scanning every corner, ready to intervene. Every government, every command center was watching. And in the middle of it all stood Evan Cole's small kitchen, where the most feared warrior in the galaxy was learning to bake a cake. Zale stiffened as a massive searchlight swept over the house. Her armor creaked, glowing faintly with tension. The instinct to strike, to destroy, to survive flared in her chest. She could crush every drone in minutes. She could send the entire human fleet screaming back to their homeworlds. She could vanish and leave the humans trembling for years, but she did not. Her glowing eyes stayed on the cake, on Evan, on the small hands that had guided her patiently through this ridiculous, fragile, beautiful task. They will not understand, she said quietly. Her voice carried the weight of centuries of battle, of victories, of bloodshed. They will see weakness and strike. They will see a human in the kitchen with me and think I have betrayed the galaxy. Evan took a deep breath. He reached for her massive hand, which dwarfed his own. Let them come. Let them see the truth. This isn't weakness. This is what humans do. We fight with care, with love, with patience. We protect what matters, even if it seems small. Karzal's eyes flickered. She had crushed planets. She had ruled battlefields with fire and terror. And now, she was learning that care could be stronger than any weapon. Stronger than any fleet. Stronger than fear. The first ship hovered directly above the house. Its weapons locked on. A mechanical voice boomed across the street. Karzal the Red Blade. You are to surrender immediately. Civilian interference is not permitted. Step aside or be fired upon. Karzal took a step forward, massive claws brushing the counter. Her glowing eyes flared, but she did not attack. Instead, she stood between Evan and the danger. the cake in her hands trembling slightly. "I will not fight," she said firmly, though every instinct in her body screamed otherwise. "I will not harm them. I am here for this human. And for this cake." Evan stepped beside her. "They cannot stop you," he said softly. "Not here, not now. You are showing them something stronger than their weapons." The weapons hesitated. For the first time, the human fleet didn't fire. Drones hovered uncertainly. Even the automated system seemed confused. And Evan understood why. The galaxy had never seen this. The deadliest warrior, feared across light years, was protecting the human. Over a cake. Evan picked up the small cake plate, holding it high. "This is why she is here," he shouted. "Not for war, not for victory, not for fear. This is what matters. Look at what she protects." Silence fell. Even the engines seemed to pause. The fleet's command ships hovered, scanning, unable to comprehend. The most feared being in the galaxy had chosen tenderness over destruction. Karzal lowered her head slightly, not out of defeat, but out of trust. She had spent centuries controlling everything, breaking everything, crushing everything. And now she was learning to trust something fragile, something human, something small. One by one, the weapons disengaged. The drones floated away. The ships retreated slowly. No one dared touch the red blade while she stood protecting the human. Because for the first time, everyone saw that strength came in many forms. Evan placed the cake carefully on the counter. Karzal knelt beside it, her massive frame folding like a giant, trying not to break the world around her. She touched it gently, reverently. "This," she whispered. "This is more important than war." Evan smiled, feeling a swell in his chest. "Yes," he said softly. "Because humans do things that no weapon can. We fight with care. We protect what matters. We remind even the strongest beings what love is." Karzal's glowing eyes softened. Her massive claws brushed lightly against the frosting. For the first time, she understood why humans were dangerous in a way no alien army could ever understand. Their strength was not in firepower, not in fleets, not in numbers. Their strength was in their hearts, and at that moment, the galaxy learned something new. A warrior feared by billions had stood down. She had protected a human. She had chosen love over fear. And that small, ridiculous, imperfect cake in a tiny kitchen had reminded the universe of a power no one had ever measured before, the power of care, of tenderness, and of trust. Karzal looked at Evan. For the first time, she did not see a human as fragile. She saw a teacher, a guide, a friend. And in that small, flower-covered kitchen, with alarms quieted and ships retreating, Evan realized that the most feared being in the galaxy had learned something that no army could ever teach, that love, patience, and care could be stronger than any weapon. The universe, it seemed, was watching and learning. Days passed quietly after that moment. The ships retreated. The drones dispersed, but the lesson lingered. Karzal no longer felt the familiar adrenaline of fear or the sharp rush of battle. She carried something heavier and more precious, responsibility born not from command, but from care. Evan watched her closely. She moved through his small kitchen with the same precision as ever, but her focus was different. She handled the utensils with care instead of force, measured ingredients with patience instead of power, and whispered softly to herself as she worked. For the first time, the warrior who had commanded entire fleets understood the rhythm of gentleness. "This is the final touch," Evan said, sliding a small, delicate decoration onto the cake. He could see the hesitation in her eyes, the fear that even this simple act might fail. "I cannot fail," Karzal muttered. Her glowing eyes flickered. "If she is to feel joy, even for a moment, it must be perfect." Evan shook his head. "No, it doesn't need to be perfect. What matters is that you tried, that you cared." Karzal's gaze softened. She had spent centuries believing that perfection meant victory, that flaws were weakness. And now she was learning that imperfection could be beautiful, because it came from the heart. When the cake was ready, Evan wrapped it carefully. He watched as Karzal held it like it was the most precious life in the universe. Her claws brushed the edges, careful not to crush the delicate creation. She had faced monsters, survived battles, destroyed empires, but now she was afraid of something small, fragile, and entirely human. "I will deliver it," she said finally. Her voice was firm, but her glowing eyes betrayed the tremor of vulnerability she felt. "I will go to her, and I will give this to her." Evan nodded. "She will love it, because you made it. That's all that matters." The journey through space was different for Karzal. She traveled not as a conqueror, not as a destroyer, but as a bearer of care. She imagined her clutched sister lying on a soft mat in the infirmary, pale but alive. She imagined the first taste of the cake, the warmth of something sweet on her tongue. She imagined a small smile breaking across her sister's face, and for the first time, she longed to create joy instead of fear. When she arrived, the infirmary was silent. The humans who cared for her clutched sister stepped back, uncertain. Karzal, massive and glowing, knelt beside the bed, placing the cake gently on the table. Her claws hovered, careful not to touch, careful not to harm. The clutched sister opened her eyes, weak, frail, but still alive. And she saw the cake. And then she saw Karzal, not as a warrior, not as a conqueror, but as someone who had gone beyond fear, beyond war, beyond herself, to bring her joy. She smiled weakly. A faint, fragile smile. Karzal's glowing eyes shimmered. "For you," she said softly. "I made this for you." Tears gathered in the clutched sister's eyes. She reached out a trembling hand, touching the edge of the cake. I didn't think anyone would care," she whispered. "Not anyone, not you." Karzal lowered her head. "I care," she said. "I always have, and I learned. It is stronger than any blade, stronger than any victory, stronger than fear." The clutched sister tasted the cake. Slowly, carefully, her eyes widened at the sweetness, at the warmth, at the love baked into every crumb. She laughed softly, a sound that had not been heard for days, maybe weeks. She cried softly at the same time, overwhelmed by something she could not name, but understood completely. Love. Karzal felt something shift inside her. The rage, the fear, the obsession with power, all of it faded into a new understanding. A simple cake, a simple act of care, had reminded her that the universe was not only for conquest. It was for tenderness, for hope, for connection. Evan's words echoed in her mind. Some strength is in love. Some strength is in care. And now she understood fully. She stayed by her sister's side, helping her eat, laughing softly at the small messes, marveling at the fragile beauty of a moment she had never known existed. The galaxy outside still raged with wars, with fear, with conquest. But inside this small infirmary, a warrior had learned the most powerful lesson of all, that true strength is not measured in weapons, in armies, or in fear. True strength is measured in love, in sacrifice, and in the courage to care when the universe expects you to destroy. And for the first time in centuries, Karzal felt something no battle had ever given her: peace. Karzal returned from the infirmary changed. Her massive steps through space no longer carried the weight of a conqueror. They carried a quiet purpose. She had faced countless enemies, crushed fleets, and survived battles that would have killed ordinary beings. But nothing had transformed her like a small human kitchen, flour on her claws, and a tiny, imperfect cake. Evan watched from his home as her ship disappeared into the stars. The city returned to normal, drones buzzing, humans going about their routines, but something subtle had shifted. Everyone who had seen the events unfold, even through their distant screens, knew that humans had done something extraordinary. They had reminded a monster what care, love, and patience meant. Weeks later, a message arrived at Evan's door. no alarm. No warning. Just a small data packet, shimmering with Karzal's signature glow. He opened it, expecting a note, a threat, or perhaps nothing at all. Inside was a recording. Karzal's massive, scarred face filled the screen. She spoke softly, almost reverently. "My clutch sister is alive," she smiled. She laughed. She knew she was loved. "And I have learned something no battle ever taught me. Humans fight differently. Humans protect differently. Humans, small, fragile, ordinary humans, are stronger than the galaxy believes. They fight with care. They fight with love. And they win in ways I could never imagine." Evan smiled, feeling warmth rise in his chest. The galaxy might fear Karzal, but she had fear now too. Fear of losing the lessons humans had taught her. Respect for their courage, their kindness, their ability to make even the deadliest warrior kneel before something delicate. Time passed, and Karzal did not return to her usual conquests. Pirate clans she once terrorized slowly disbanded. Battles cooled. Planets once poised for war negotiated instead of striking. Her reputation had been altered not by force, but by something she had learned from a human dot, and slowly the stories spread. The Red Blade, the galaxy's most feared warrior, had been stopped. Not by armies, not by weapons, not by threats, but by a human, a small kitchen, and a cake. Evan continued his quiet life, fixing machines, drinking tea, and occasionally smiling. When he thought of Karzal kneeling over that flour-dusted cake, trembling not from fear, but from care. Humans had reminded even the strongest,